Hi guys, so here's where we're at. Another quiet weekend for once, and gives us a little time to replenish our beer in the kegerator because we are low on a couple tanks, and so going to head and start with this sour cherry pilsner and just show you first step we do. Got some great instructions they put in these kits. If you ever had the itch to try one, I'll just go over it real quickly and thoroughly though. What they typically have you do is like one of the first steps here is sanitize all your equipment, which I've already done that, including the fermentation tanks are all sanitized and ready to go. And then the first real step is you get at least 2.5 gallons of the water you're going to use in your boil and cooking the wort, they call it. So I'm kind of monitoring the temperature. Once it gets up to about 150, which we're getting close, I'll just move the probe around a little bit, try to get a more even reading. This is 3 gallons actually for what I'm starting with. Just makes the math a little easier to keep track of. And temperature, yeah, still in the low 130s. Once it gets to 150, since we're in a little higher elevation, you're supposed to go ahead and cook the wort, seeping the grains here in this bag. It's mostly like cracked malt or, I wish I had the package with me, but I think it's like yep, I guess I do have the package with me. Yep, it's cracked Pilsen 12-ounce malt package, and we put them in the little bag to let it seep when the temperature gets right at 150 degrees. And then we let it steep at that temperature for about 20 minutes. And then we take it out, throw it away. Don't squeeze the bag, just pull it out and dispose of it. Then you turn the temperature up and get the rest to a boil. And then once it's boiling, we add the dry malt extract. What is this? 3-pound bag. And since this is a cherry flavored sour, we're going to put the cherry concentrate that they include with the kit. And we let that cook for a few minutes as we're vigorously stirring it and making sure it gets blended in well. Then we go to the real boil schedule, where that includes the hops here. We got a couple different bags. Well, excuse me, this time they're the same bags. It's just we're going to put one in at the start after we're done blending the flavors here, the malt and the sour cherry extract. Then we take one bag, let it blend in and boil for 30 minutes, stirring and keeping it boiling. And then we put the second bag in for the remaining 30 minutes for a total of an hour. That's what we'll be doing. And then I believe oh yeah, at the end of the boil, when we terminate the boil, take it off the heat, we add this yeast nutrient, which is just basically a fancy sugar, I believe. Blend it in, and then we take the big cooking pot here to the sink. I'll just drop it right in here, put a couple bags of, well, before I put it in there, I'll put the remaining 2 gallons of water in the wort to bring the boil temperature down quite a bit with some cold water. Then we bring it over here, all 5 gallons, put it in here with the couple bags of ice surrounding it to try to chill it a little faster. And then once we get it down to about 70 degrees, we'll put it in our fermentation tank. And then once we get it in there, we'll, of course, filter it with the filter bag I have, get all the remaining malt and hops and stuff, sediment basically, out of the cooking pot and into the fermentation tank. And at that time, like I was saying, it's down to about 70 degrees, maybe 72. That's a good range for it. And then at that point, we will add the yeast and I prefer to make my beer gluten-free, so I'll put the little kit in there that eats the gluten. Most of it, not all, it's not really truly gluten-free, but it removes a good deal of it. Anyway, we're at 142. Move the probe around a little bit just to make sure we're about staying there. Yep, 443 in the middle. So once it gets to 150, I'll cut back the temperature to try to keep it around 150. Get our crushed malt bag in there and let it start seeping away and give us that flavor to the water we love so much. Okay guys, so we're at 150 degrees now, so I'm going to start throttling back on the temperature here. And then I'm going to take our crushed malt little bag here and get it seeping. So you see I tied on loosely. It's still holding it fine. It's kind of half floating in the water there, and you can see we're around 152. Now throttled back on the heat a bit. Want to keep it above 150, but I don't really want to drop it below 150. So now we gotta watch our timer, and then we'll take the bag out of crushed malt and throw it away for the next step. But right now we're just gonna let her go for 20 minutes. I'll pause. Okay, we're still down in the 150 range, 154, and our 20 minutes of cooking the wort, as they call it, is done. Actually, I think I went a few minutes over that. But as I stick my nose in here, oh, take a little smell of that. It's like carnation malted milk powder. That's exactly what it smells like, which since it's crushed malt, it probably should. Anyway, we're told to just lift the bag out and let it drain. Do not squeeze the bag. And then I'm going to transfer it to the garbage can. We have no more use for this. Ugh, there we go. Into the can it goes. Thank you for your work. Okay, so the next thing is raise the temperature. Let's bring this to a boil. I'll put my little probe back in. Untangle the mess that came with the probe here. So we're at 145 still. Anyway, once we get it to a boil, we'll add the dry malt extract and then the flavoring, the cherry, sour cherry. Look forward to it. But it's going to really get an interesting smell at that point. So let's hang on while the temperature here picks up, 156. And we'll just wait for a vigorous boil to come along as the instructions said. Okay, the probe says 196. My calculations show at this altitude, which is 6,600 feet, we should be boiling at 200 degrees, but the probe only says 196. I look in the kettle here. I see plenty of little boiling action going on. So, okay, I'm just going to remove the probe. I think the probe's off a little bit. I'll remove the probe, leave it in a sanitized area. Probably don't need to stir this, but I will for grins one last time before starting to add the remaining ingredients. Okay, so this is the bag of the dry malt extract and the sour cherry. This we blend right now. stirring, I'm going to start slowly pouring and blending this in. Okay, I got that all blended in. Let's bring this over so you can kind of see this, how it gets kind of foamy. Nice thick layer of foam at the top, but it is blending into pretty well, other than a little bit that got stuck on the spoon here, but that's an acceptable loss. Anyway, next add the cherry. So it's the cherry extract going in. Okay, I'm going to put the camera down to stir. Well, the cherry definitely changed the color. I'll show you in a moment. Okay, let's grab this. Now you can see how it went from a off-white malty kind of color. Now it's pretty dark here. Nice dark cherry color. And yeah, it smells like cherry. Okay, and I'm sure the cherry extract had plenty of sugars in it, which will probably, help make all the alcohol, and it'll give it a much more, as the sugar gets converted to alcohol, is what I'm trying to say. It'll probably, by reducing all the sugar content, it'll give it a much more sour, tart flavor to the beer with that nice cherry aftertaste to it. So one of the things that normally happens when adding a bunch of other room temperature ingredients like that malt extract and the cherry syrup flavors is the temperature of the beer content here, the beer mixture we're making and cooking. It dropped about 10 or 11 degrees, so now we gotta keep the temperature on it and try to raise the temperature back to boiling again. And then once it gets to boiling, then we start our clock and put our first bag of hops in, which has that interesting aroma of the real bitterness that you find in some beers. And that's one of the things they do to help adjust the flavors and stuff. It also was one of the ingredients they found actually to help preserve beer for those long voyages around the world, back when in the days of the British Empire, when it would ship kegs of beer across the world. They'd keep it fresh with just the magic of hops, and that's what helped preserve it in those long ship voyages. So it's one of those ingredients that's still around today and still very helpful. Okay, it's time for that second batch of hop pellets to be added to the brew. So I'll just cut it open. Got to take a sniff. Oh man, interesting stuff. So stir it in. Get every little pellet out of there. Come on. One more. There we go. Stir it in good. Now we let the boil continue for another half an hour. Okay, so here we go. This is our last little additive, the what they call the yeast nutrient. I believe it's just primarily sugar. So just to help boost the alcohol level during the fermentation process. So this is the last step on the boil after an hour. Just cut it open. Stir it in and shut it down. first gallon. Okay, so we're down to about 135 degrees, a little warmer than I was expecting. But anyway, I'm going to go grab a couple bags of ice from the chest freezer and get them in the sink here and start really dropping the temperature on this kettle. And okay, so now I got my couple bags of ice. Get our kettle moved over. Handles on the kettle are still pretty warm. That's one bag. So I'll just show here what it looks like from above. And I got the ice kind of spread around, and the mixture is dropping in temperature. Let me get the thermometer. Okay, there we go. 124, 25 degrees. That's kind of like what it looks like up close. We'll filter it out, strain it here in a moment when it gets down to the right temperature. I have this little straining bag here, and I'll put it in the fermenting bucket and strain all the remaining hops and malt sludge and stuff out of there. But I'll keep watching it, spread the ice around, and it'll be down to 70 before we know it. Okay, we're back. The temperature is down to about 72 and dropping quickly. There's still a little ice down in this ice water that I have here. And I do recommend using a metal kettle for chilling. Yep, it's down to 71. Like I said, it's dropping fast. Time to transfer. I'm going to take it from this bucket ice, the metal kettle here in the ice water while it's still the right temperature, and start transferring it in here. This will be our fermentation bucket. And there we go. What I'm going to do now is take the little filter bag off and get all the sludge and sediment out. Just giving it a squeeze here. There's still feels like a pound or 2 or 3 of liquid and sludge inside of here. I'll go clean this in the other sink as soon as I get the rest of the good stuff out. Give it a little squeeze to try to speed it along. Get as much of the liquid out as I can. Okay, so we have left. Now left here is what is the remains of the hops and the malt in here. Try to get up closer for you. You can see inside the bag a little better. That's what it should look like when you squeeze it out. Anyway, it's got a powerful aroma. And here's the beer in the fermentation tank. I'm going to bring it up to the 5-gallon mark level so we have a full batch here to ferment. Okay, see if this does it. Yeah, now we're at the mark. We give this one more good stir here at the moment. Just for grins, I want to check the temperature again. About 71.5. It's a pretty good temperature to start with for our yeast. So this is our little yeast packet. We would cut it open. Break open our yeast. Just spread it around right along the top there. And then this little packet, Clarity Firm, it's what we use for helping eliminate a lot of the gluten in the beer. Give it a little shake. Pour it in. There we go. Make a little room up here. I can smell that yeast. I'm sure it's going to work pretty quick. So I'm going to cap the lid on this. I'm going to have to put it on the ground and try to snap it on better. Here we go. Okay, try to get our little air trap in the right amount of water there. Actually, I'm going to flush it out first so it doesn't have quite so many bubbles in it. The bubbles were left over from the sanitizer, the acid bath. Anyway, there's some marks on here that indicate where the water level should be. So I got it there. Put the little cap back on. And now, oops, put it back in here. Now what we should see, if we have a good seal on this, push down a little bit, and you can see a little water adjusting. That means we don't have a leak of any kind. Looks good. Oops. So now I'm going to go put it in a nice location, probably in our bedroom closet, where it's a nice 70, 72 degrees, which is just ideal for fermenting. So this is our cherry Pilsner batch, sour cherry, and I'm going to let it do its magic while I get ready and prep for the next batch, which will be that chocolate milk stout. Okay, here we go with the second batch, which is the chocolate milk stout. This is a 5-gallon beer kit. It's one of these kind of quick, simpler recipes. There's these all-grain ones, which I haven't tried yet, but I'm eager to at some point. Right now, it's just a few simple basic steps. Basically, like the last batch we just did of the cherry, sour cherry Pilsner, this stout, the chocolate milk stout's got these 2 grain packages which go for steeping when we get in the kettle over here to 150 degrees. I'm going to try my best to keep it about that temperature because of our altitude. Boiling's about somewhere between 197 and 200 here at 6,600 feet. Anyway, the first steeping will be in the bag with these 2 grains, and then after we're done steeping for about 20 minutes, we'll raise the temperature to a boiling, and we'll put this lactose package and these 2 dry malt extracts in there. And then finally, the dark malt extract here looks good. And we'll bring that to a boil. And after that's been mixed together well and boiled, we'll finally go on the schedule of mixing these 2 different packages of hops. And if I read right, on this side, we'll do this for an hour on a boil, which I believe the Cascade hops goes in for 30 minutes first. It's got a much higher alpha acid level, and then a little milder acid on the Fogel hop pellets. And these 2 will go for 30 minutes and then another 30 minutes before we finally start lowering the temperature and getting it transferred into the fermenter. So follow along, and we'll be hopefully fermenting some chocolate milk stout soon. Okay, we're working on our second batch here and cooking the wort, as they say. We've got the grains in the grain bag here. Try to show you up a little closer. Anyway, this bag there, cooking away at 154 degrees or so. I'm trying to keep it a lot closer to 150 when I can. Anyway, the last thermometer broke. It was much more convenient because we could just hang here and I could check the readings real continuously, live feed, you know. Now we gotta like pop a probe in here and see how we're doing every few minutes just to check it. About 154 degrees. And then one of the malts is a liquid malt that I got to do for the second little step here. And it's that dark stuff here. I put it in some hot water just to try to make the malt syrup a little more manageable. It'll make it easier to dissolve in the rest of the liquid. And then one other step I forgot to mention here, when we pitch the yeast, which is this little yeast pack, we also have the cocoa nibs that also go in at fermentation time and stay with the whole batch for the week or 2 that you ferment it, giving it more of that chocolate flavor. So that's it for now. We're just getting ready here in probably about 10 more minutes to take the grain out, the grain bag, and then get into adding the lactose. Then we got 2 bags of dry malt extract, as well as that can that's warming up in the sink in the hot water there. They get added at when we start the boil, the first phase of the boil. Take the grain bag out. It's been steeping for 20 minutes, cooking the wort, as they say. And I forgot to mention earlier, I think, that we got the crushed Cara Brown Supreme Malt. That's what was in that bag, along with the second grains, which was crushed chocolate barley malt. And these are both pretty dark malts, barley or grains, whatever, barley and the other one. Anyway, I'll flip around, show what I'm doing here. in pulling the grain bag out. I just loosely wrap this around, and then we just raise her up, hope the bag doesn't rip. It is very heavy at the moment. Okay, I'm going to make a mess on the floor as I go to the garbage can here. But here we go. Oops. Yep, I'm in a mess. See the little mess across there? Yeah. Anyway, let's turn this up. Got to bring it to a boil. Then we can start putting the malts in shortly. Okay, we're there. It's at a boil. So it's time to add the malt extracts. I'm going to start first with the can while the liquid inside here is kind of warm still. It's kind of an interesting smell. It's kind of a chocolatey molasses smell. Interesting stuff. Maybe a hint of dog food in it or something. Anyway, let me get it stirring and pouring it in. Okay, I had to wait a few minutes here. Try to get the temperature back up. That liquid malt extract, the little can, even though I had it on a hot water bath trying to raise the temperature, it still drops the temperature like 7-8 degrees in here. So we lose the boil. But in just a moment, I'll be adding the lactose bag. After all, it is a milk stout. And then down here, these 2 bags of dry malt extract, 1 pound each, 2 pounds of it. So I'll get these cut open and get them going here. Okay, first bag, the lactose. Next, the first bag of dry malt extract. Okay, and the second bag. For a closer look. Real foamy in here at the moment, and you might even see some little clumps of the dry malt that got some moisture, steam in it as I was pouring it in. It kind of clumps up, but I've seen this break up before, and as it boils and a little bit more continuous stirring here, seems to break it all up. I've never had a problem with it when it gets to time for putting it into the fermentation bucket or carboy, however you want to ferment it. In my case, I really enjoy these buckets. They seem to be a lot easier to handle and clean than the carboys are. So up to you, your own choice, but I really like these buckets. And here's our big 6.5 gallon one, which that'll be for this next batch. We'll pour it in here once we chill it. And here's our area to chill on this side of the sink, where I'll put the ice in it again and do like I did with the sour cherry batch we just made up previously. Okay, next we've got 2 hops to add, but we do them at 30-minute intervals. The milder UK hops, Fogel hop pellets, whatever, we'll do those in the second half hour. First half hour one's the Cascade hops from back in Oregon, I'm sure. Come from, oh man, they're strong, nice powerful acid smell. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. Then we wait 30 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and put the second milder ones in. Bring the camera over. You see what kind of crazy boil we got going here. Yeah, the flame's going good. Let's just Turn this down a little bit. Don't need all that much energy to keep a good boil going. Anyway, gotta mark the clock. Half an hour later, we'll put the UK hops in. Gonna put the UK hop pellets in here and wait another half an hour. Then we start the chilling process, and we're that much closer to finishing up our long day of making beer. Okay, the chocolate milk stout is off the cooking burner there, and now it's chilling in the little ice water down here, and I'm monitoring it closely. So when it gets down to that magic 70, 72 kind of range, that I then pour it to the fermenting bucket over here. And we'll hopefully be doing that here shortly. Get it sealed up. Well, before we seal it up, of course, pitch the yeast, the little blue bag here, and then of course our favorite, the cocoa nibs, to go into the fermentation. So that'll give us some great flavor in the next week or two as it does its magic, and we'll have that wonderful chocolate milk stout that we'll put into the kegs and start chilling for spring, and maybe some of it will last into summer. We'll see. Got our yeast. Chocolate. And even though it's a milk stout with lactose, I'm going to still try to reduce the amount of gluten I'm going to get, and dairy and all that good stuff. Here we go on the floor. Lid on. A lot easier from the ground. Do a little cleanup, because this chocolate stout, milk stout here, it has a lot of sugar in it. So I think it's a little high. Put it in here. And of course, the big test. Push down. Yep, I see some motion. I'll give you a close-up shot just to verify. You can see the water bubble, the water level there. Yep, we don't have any air escaping. Okay, now I'm going to take our bucket and put it over where I like to do my fermenting, which is right over there. Okay, you can see here, 6.5 gallon bucket and the 6 gallon bucket. 5 gallon mark is right about here on this bucket, and I think it's here in this bucket. Yep, there's my mark. That's the 5 gallon mark. Okay, so no fermenting going on. No gas being released yet. It's 9 p.m. Mountain Time here, Mountainair. You can see it's getting dark outside. It's been a long 8 or 9 hours today doing these 2 batches, but hopefully by this time tomorrow night we'll have some gas being released and know that our chemistry is working. It should be about a nice 70 to 72 in this part of the house. So I'm sure the chemistry should work good. Okay, guys, cheers. Okay, here we are. I think a little over 48 hours into the fermentation. This one was going pretty crazy for the first day and a half. It's slowing down now. This one wasn't doing anything during the first day and a half, and looked like there might have been a problem with the yeast or something, so I found another little packet of yeast and threw it in here, and then not long after that it got going, so it's still going strong, and hopefully in another week or so we'll get around to kegging this. Thank you for watching an episode of Nature Preserved Life in Mountainair, New Mexico. If you'd like to follow along and support our channel, please press the subscribe button and gong that bell to be notified. After all, it's free. Free is a very good price. In the future, we'll plan to focus our episodes on our eco-friendly build of earthen construction and dark night astronomy, that big guy there, and tourism of the regional area, as well as establishing a Patreon account for the sole support of wildlife in Deer Canyon Preserve. So stay tuned. Cheers.